I'm an old woman now, retired, nice, quiet life. I spend a lot of time listening to podcasts, especially the true crime ones. Some nights I hear stories that sound awfully familiar, and here's one you might have never heard before. This happened in the mid-1980s when I was barely 20 years old. I went to a community college in the Midwest, boring, flat, windy, accented with brick buildings. I was out of town, so I lived in the dorms for convenience and to try to save some money. There were 6 of us total inside one unit. We each had a small private bedroom, but we shared this nice long common room and one bathroom. The walls there were thin, cheap carpet accompanied them, and you could hear everything: music, phone calls, people crying, or, well, doing other things. Marcy was loud all the time, even when she was asleep. Donna never left the dorm, only studied. Tish liked attention, if you know what I mean. And Kelly liked horror movies and wore a lot of black. Sharon talked to her parents on the phone every Friday for at least a couple of hours. And then you get to me. I got good grades, had a part-time job, and mostly just kept to myself. Although I did like the occasional party or concert. We had a lot more school in front of us, and since we all got along, we elected to board together again the following semester for a few months, then it was goodbye. That summer, when students were mostly gone, a girl was found half dead just off campus inside an alley. I didn't know her, and I don't think any of us did. The news said that her injuries were bad enough the police thought that she might have been hit by a car and then dragged into the alley itself, an accident that had turned ugly. People talked about it where I lived for a few days, at the diner, on the radio. Then it kind of just faded into background noise. The police didn't say much, and without any more details, it was easy to think it was just kind of random. By the time the fall semester had started, we all moved back into the dorm, and the alley was a place people continued to avoid at night. But the second girl was found 3 weeks into that fall semester. This time, no one tried to offer any kind of reasons. It was the same part of town, but a different alley. The police still didn't release any more details, but everybody could already see the pattern forming. The campus changed almost overnight. More patrol cars, warning flyers taped up to doors, a meeting in the dorm where the director told us not to walk alone at night and to trust our instincts. But we didn't even know what we were looking for. And of course, we were already afraid. So we start pairing up. Late night classes demanded us to stick together. Trips to the store became group outings now. The bars near campus emptied out earlier than usual. Men we didn't recognize stood out like glowing red flags. Not long after, the third girl was found, and we realized exactly how powerless we truly were. Nothing anyone did or was doing was saving them. After that, the police stopped hedging. They weren't issuing graphic warnings. Curfews were fully enforced. They said they believed the killer was a local, a man acting alone, likely in his 30s or 40s, and very familiar with the area itself. Of course, again, that description didn't really narrow anything down, and it made everybody look suspicious. But because of the sudden information dump, the murders actually stopped for a while. Weeks would pass, nothing new. No arrests, no new bodies. That silence was haunting. People relaxed just enough to function, but still nobody felt safe. We kept our door locked at all times, and lights stayed on at night. Hell, Kelly even stopped watching horror movies. We didn't say it out loud, but we all believed the same thing. He's still out there, lurking at the edges of our vision, waiting to jump on the most vulnerable person he could find. That weekend, a girl from another dorm ended up filing a police report. She said a man followed her home from a bar. He stayed behind her the entire walk, never spoke, but was aggressive in his pursuit. Thinking this was the killer, she wasted no time acting. When she cut through the alley, he followed. When she ran, he ran. This alley normally turned into a dead end, but to this woman's fortune, a business had its back door open for a routine cleaning. She slipped into the open business just before the man reached her. But of course, by the time the police arrived, the man was gone. That story moved around like a bad rumor. This girl lived. She could describe him. Tall, dark jacket, work boots, ordinary, but seemed beyond fury. Sunday night, I think around 11, all 6 of us were inside the common room, studying, folding laundry, just trying to keep busy. Outside, the campus was quiet, being patrolled by the police. Then somebody knocked on our door. 1, 2, 3 times. Everybody froze. Marcy leaned toward the peephole and looked, and her breath hitched. It's a cop. I looked next. The man was in uniform, but something about it felt off. I didn't recognize the insignia on the patch. Open the door, he said. There's a situation nearby. I need to check your unit. Donna shook her head, eyes bugging out of her head. Sharon whispered, This can't be real. Kelly didn't hesitate. She picked up the phone and dialed 911. We're calling the cops. His voice changed instantly, screaming through the walls. He started banging on the door, and then he ran off. As his footsteps disappeared, we heard a clatter of something on the floor. We all kind of huddled together inside the common area, dispatch on the phone waiting for somebody to come get us. Police would arrive within minutes. Lights washed everything away, including our worries. Real officers then ran past our door, and they caught him across the street, trying to disappear into the parking lot. His costume ended up being his downfall. Later, we learned that noise that we'd heard was a hammer and a 10-inch screwdriver, items that he'd used in his previous murders. And I was in total shock when we were told that. I had almost opened up the door for him. They moved us out that night, and police took all of our statements. Our parents called, and Sharon's were on campus by the morning. Classes weren't stopped. Just another normal day after the fact. The man's name was released later along with a photo, and I didn't recognize him. None of us did. If you Google enough, I'm sure you can find him. I finished the semester and left town not long after. The dorms remained open. New students moved in and slept in those same beds that we were almost murdered in. I've been crossing Texas pretty much all day, cutting through the stretch of backcountry highway where the land flattens out and doesn't really ever stand back up. No other towns, no exits, just roads, scrub, and butt-ugly country. You could see 10 or 15 miles straight ahead without a single bend. And then out of nowhere, my car started jerking. A hard pull to the right, steering going loose for a second, my dashboard lighting up. I eased off the gas and then coasted to the shoulder. By the time I stopped, the tire was completely gone, flapping rubber against the asphalt. I stepped out and felt that heat roll up off the road that was very unforgiving. The tire was shredded down to the rim, but worse than that, there was fluid coming out from beneath my car. Anxiety quickly came to life inside of me. I popped the hood and immediately backed off. Steam hissed up at me in these short bursts. The smell was that of cooking oil. I let the air out and grabbed my phone. No signal, of course. I walked up the shoulder, then back the other way, holding up my phone just out of habit. I'm not even sure that works anymore. Still nothing. I looked down at the highway in both directions. Empty. Nothing was looking good for me in the moment. I checked the trunk. No spare, which made me furious. Just a jack, a tire iron, and a bag of stuff that I did not need right now. The engine was ticking close by as it cooled off, and somewhere out in the brush, insects were clicking in these eerie bursts, cicadas or whatever the hell they're called. The sun was dropping, taking the heat with it, but leaving everything out in this washed out light. I sat on the guardrail and took stock. I had some water, a couple of protein bars, and a jacket, enough to get me through the night if I had to. And that's when it all really hit me. I wasn't going to get help anytime soon, and if somebody did come along, it would be the only car I'd probably see for hours. I looked down the road in front of me and tried to not trip out. I stayed with the car because there wasn't anywhere else really to go. I'm in the middle of nowhere. The heat started to bleed out of the ground once the sun was dropping. The sky went dark, and every few minutes I waved my phone light down the highway, more out of habit than hope. I really, genuinely have never felt alone like that. Then in the distance I heard an engine, loud, rough, and struggling. No muffler. It was sounding like a chariot from heaven in my ears in the moment though. Headlights then appeared far off, growing faster. I could see it in the fading sunlight. It was a black van, lifted, riding on thick off-road tires. The windshield was dark enough that I couldn't even see the driver at all. I stepped close to the shoulder and waved my light. The van slowed once it was actually within range of me. Salvation. I found a spot on the shoulder just behind my car. The engine stayed running, and after a beat, the driver's door opened and a guy hopped down. He seemed to be in his mid-20s, thin and wired. Sunglasses still on, even in the near dark. A bandana loose around his neck, cigarette burning in his hand. He looked around with a smile. Hell of a place to get stuck, huh? "Yeah," I said. "I blew a tire, no service. Just my luck." He chuckled, then turned into a slow circle, taking in the road, the brush, the dark. "No service, huh?" he said again. "That's real bad luck." This started to sound like a catchphrase at this point. "Well, good thing I came along," he added. "Let's see what you did." He crouched by the wheel, pulled out a flashlight that was unbearably bright. The beam snapped on and brought shadows to life all around us, and he whistled. "Whew, you picked up a big knuckle of metal." He then angled the flashlight. A long, jagged strip of steel was wedged into the wheel well, bent and chewed up to hell. "That'll stop any rig." I glanced over at him. "You think that came off something?" He shrugged at me. "Out here, it could be anything. Maybe it bounced off a trailer that had just been tumbling down the highway." He helped me jack the car up. His van's headlights flooded the scene, washing everything else out past the shoulder, and the highway behind us quickly vanished into complete blackness. We played with the lugs for a while. He tugged on the ruined tire with a grunt. Something's catching in the back. The lugs are clear, so I don't know what it is. I can't see it." "What do you need?" I asked him, and he looked over at me for a second, and I mean really looked, then smiled. "Oh, I'm gonna need you under there," he said. "Just tell me what's hanging it up." I hesitated. The jack creaked slightly under the weight of the car. "It's just for a second," he said. "I'll be right here." I didn't want to crawl under my car at night with a stranger standing over me, but I wanted to be off that road more than anything else. I just had to press myself against it for just a second. "All right," I said. "Let me use your flashlight." He lifted it slightly. "This one? I'll angle it around. I'll hold it for you." I nodded back. So I got on my back and slid under the car. The ground around me was cold and smelled like burnt oil. I squinted, trying to make sense of all the shapes in the dark, and there's nothing out of place to my eye, at least. "I still can't see much," I said to him. "Can you angle that flashlight a little better? This one?" Then the light exploded, white hot. It almost made me nauseous. My body locked up, every muscle clenched, my jaw snapped shut so hard I thought I broke my teeth. God knows how many thousands of lumens cold clocked me out of nowhere and sent me into this lizard brain mode. It was like he tasered my eyes. And somewhere above me, the metal shifted and the car rocked. Panic then shot through me. I twisted and rolled, pulling myself sideways as the car tipped. And then it slammed down right where I'd been. The jack snapping loose, the frame smashing into the asphalt. I watched my exposed frame leave a dent half an inch deep. I scrambled backward. What the fuck just happened? The guy shoved the car again, trying to roll it further. Was this his plan all along? When he saw me upright, his face went flat. "Hey," he said quickly. "Easy, that was an accident." But I ran. I bolted straight off the shoulder into the desert, crashing through the brush and loose rock. "Hey, you okay?" It was an accident." I dropped behind a low-rise and just stayed there, crouched, watching through the brush. I knew I was safe out here in the dark, at least for the moment. He paced along the road with the flashlight, sweeping the beam back and forth, breathing hard, nervous. He kept talking, saying accident over and over again, like he's trying to convince some kind of lawyer in front of him. I'm not moving. I'm not going to let this asshole have any satisfaction whatsoever. After a while, he just stopped. I heard a door slam, then the van's engine revved up. Headlights swung across the shoulder once, looped, then disappeared. I stayed hidden long enough for that sound to fade, waiting for silence to swallow everything up in the world. I stayed in the brush for a couple of hours. I couldn't trust that he was really gone. When I walked back to the car, the road was now empty. No headlights, no engine noise, just my car that still was wounded on the shoulder. I got inside, locked the doors, and just waited. I didn't turn anything on. I just watched the road and listened, ready to run again if I needed to. I figured I'd be able to hear him just like before. But he didn't come back. Morning came and I was in disbelief. The desert was normal, and a patrol car pulled over a little after sunrise. The trooper took one look at my car and nodded. "Let me guess, you had a real bad night." I told him what happened, Kept it simple. Flat tire, van, guy with the flashlight. The more I thought about it, the more I think he actually hit me with the stun gun after he flashed me. Then the car coming off the jack. When I described the van, he stopped riding and stepped away to make a call. You're not the first person to mention that vehicle to me. A tow truck came, and while they loaded up the car, the trooper walked around the shoulder, found the piece of metal from the wheel well, bagged it, and took a few photos. And that evening, he gave me a call. They picked the guy up outside a small town of where I broke down. Same van, same setup. Inside, they found equipment that matched everything that I ascribed to them, along with evidence tying him to several roadside deaths over the last few years. Breakdown after breakdown that oddly resulted in these bizarre and mysterious deaths over the past few years that remained a mystery. The trooper didn't go into more details because the investigation was ongoing. I travel much differently now. Almost being killed in the middle of nowhere turned out to be far more nightmarish than I ever would have expected, and being left and crushed slowly to death by my own car to boot. To hell with all that. I stay strapped and keep a spare tire. I don't take bullshit back roads, and if I do, I've got a map and a line directly to civilization. Fool me once. When I was in 5th grade, not much happened where I lived at. It was considered a retirement community, with the same houses, the same kids, the same routine. The river ran behind our neighborhood. It was dirty and brown, and none of us really gave it a second thought. Just like that stream, we lived inside this boring place. But that all changed in the spring that year when somebody found a suitcase inside the water. At first, it was just normal small town talk. Kids whispering on the bus. Somebody said a fisherman hooked it and then dragged it in. Somebody else said a dog pulled it up on the bank. And by the time we got home that afternoon, my mom was on the phone. Her voice was tense and she was staring out the kitchen window. My dad didn't turn on the TV when he got home, which was unusual. He sat at the table, told us straight up that the police had pulled a body from the river. In a suitcase, he said, and it all clicked together. And that's the part that stuck with me more than anything else. A suitcase was something you took on vacation, something with wheels and a handle, not something you put a person inside. How the hell could somebody even fit in there? The details would come out at school. Somebody had chopped her up and fit her inside like a puzzle piece. Nobody had any clue who she was. Adults said that she was probably a prostitute, and that word floated around school for a few weeks. Half the kids not even knowing what it meant, just that it sounded bad. She wasn't identified, at least not that I ever heard, and nobody talked about any kind of suspect. The police taped off the river path and investigated for weeks on end. Parents didn't let their kids wander around anymore. My mom took to locking all the doors every second of the day, and my dad walked the yard with a flashlight after dark. For the first time, the idea settled in that somebody had done this and then just gone home, that they possibly lived somewhere nearby, maybe close enough to hear us laughing in the street or see lights on at night, to know our names and our schedules. And that's when the river started feeling like a part of the neighborhood and more like an omen. Nobody went down there anymore. And by the end of that summer, 2 more bodies had turned up. Both women, both cut apart in the same way. One in another suitcase, the other stuffed into a duffel bag. Police still weren't saying much, but they didn't have to. Everybody knew it was the same guy. They were keeping all of the more intimate details until they were closer to some kind of breakthrough. After all this, our parents may as well have been law enforcement too. They hovered over everything. No more riding bikes past sundown. No more cutting through the woods to save any kind of time. If you were outside, somebody's dad was watching from a porch or a garage, usually holding a golf club or a baseball bat. We adjusted because kids always do. There were 4 of us total, me, Aaron, Kyle, and Ben. And we spent most afternoons holed up at Aaron's house because his parents worked late. We set up camp in his bedroom on the 2nd floor, the one with the view of the river path and the tree line beyond it. Aaron had binoculars. His uncle had used them for hunting. We took turns looking at them like snipers inside an eagle's nest. And we watched everything. People walking dogs, joggers, old couples shuffling past with grocery bags. Every stranger that went by would get studied by us. Every parked car was scrutinized. We were half scared and half bored, which is a whirlwind combination at 11 years old. Could be anybody, Kyle kept saying. That's how they do it. Yeah, they always live close by, Ben added. Fuel on the fire. And we all believed that. The killer wasn't some shadow creature drifting in from the highway. He was a local. He bought gas. He waved at his neighbors. He knew where the river had enough power to move some kind of big, heavy suitcase like that. And when the news broke about a fort discovery, things tipped from fear into grand paranoia. Police swarmed the river once again, farther downstream this time. Helicopters thudded overhead for quite some time. The rumor was another body had come floating through. But this time it wasn't a body, just blood, this unbelievable amount of it, and nobody knew what to make of it. Now the river was closed off completely, and parents warned us time and time again to not go anywhere near it under any circumstances, which meant obviously that we started talking about going. As mentioned, kids are dumb as hell, and especially when something appears scary. We planned it like complete idiots. Midnight, flashlights with fresh batteries stick together, no screaming unless somebody was actually being attacked. Aaron even brought this cheap disposable camera, like we might make some kind of major breakthrough or something. We met at the edge of a taped off trail, hearts pounding, nervous as hell, trying to come off as brave and pull together. Crawling under the tape felt crazy, as if we just crossed into some kind of afterlife. The woods around the river were swallowing everything up, and our flashlights carved out these narrow tunnels, catching branches, rocks, but nothing alive. Nobody said a word, and every snap of a twig made each one of us flinch. And at first, we found nothing. No tools, no stains, no signs of anybody ever camping or dumping anything. Just dirt, bugs, and the steady rush of water, getting louder and louder as we got closer. When we finally reached the riverbank, nobody still was saying anything for quite some time. We just kind of stood there, listening, expecting what? I don't know, a scream, a splash, anything to confirm the knots in our bellies, but nothing presented itself. Aaron finally pointed downstream. The bridge. It was old, concrete, barely wide enough for two cars to pass by on. We weren't supposed to be anywhere near it at night, and the idea of getting closer made my stomach do a backflip, but nobody wanted to say no. Nobody wanted to be the scaredy cat. Halfway there, we saw lights. There was this RV sat upon the bridge, engine running, headlights on, brake lights glowing red, but it wasn't moving. The passenger door hung open, and somebody inside shifted, metal clinking slowly. None of us spoke. We crouched instinctively. Being seen could mean death. "The hell's he doing?" Ben whispered. And an answer came a second later. Something heavy tipped over the railing. It teetered, caught for a second, then slid and plummeted into the water with a deep, wide splash. It was a suitcase. I knew it before my brain caught up. The blocky shape, the way it fell as one unit. The man leaning over the railing looked down at his handiwork. His face was in shadow, but I could see his hand moving, rubbing at the front of his jeans. My legs locked. I couldn't breathe. He climbed back into the driver's seat, shut the door, released the brake, and the RV rolled forward, tires purring softly, disappearing off into the woods. Nobody moved until that sound was completely gone. And then we ran until we hit the edge of the neighborhood. Aaron starts yelling, then screaming, and somebody else was in tears behind me. Porch lights came on, a man stepped out in socks and asked what the hell was wrong with us. We tried to explain to him the RV, the bridge, the suitcase, and that word did it. Parents came out after that, and my dad told my mom to call the police. I think everybody was making that call. My dad took off down the street toward the river with two other parents behind him, half dressed and pissed off. Squad cars arrived just a few minutes later, red and blue lights painting everything in sight. The police separated us and took statements, and we told the same story over and over again. An old RV, yellow headlights, suitcase over the railing. The cop writing things down did not interrupt, just let our story flow. They found the suitcase within 15 minutes because it hadn't gone far. The river by the bridge was slow moving, filled with branches and deadfall. One of the officers pulled the zipper back, just enough to peek inside, then closed it again, and everybody knew what was in there. Nobody let us near it. The search started immediately. They put out a description for the RV, older model, light color, possibly rusted out. Roadblocks went up on the highway. Patrols ran all night long, and by morning, there was nothing. No RV, no suspects, no answers. The school was closed the next day too. The river was essentially condemned to the public. Nobody complained about being bored. I never left my window. My dad's binoculars glued to my face now. It felt dumb to me to stop looking for him. Shit, we were the only ones to actually see him, to have some semblance of an idea of what we were looking for. And I watched every street as much as I possibly could. And then I saw an old RV rolling through a few streets over, just kind of drifting. It never stopped cruising, just passed through, almost as if it were lost. The windows were too dark to see an actual driver. I yelled for my parents, but by the time they came upstairs, it was of course gone. They called 911 anyway. The police came back, took another report, and asked if I was sure. Yeah, I'm sure. They took my statement and resumed the hunt. No one was ever arrested, at least to my knowledge. The killings stopped, at least in our area, and eventually the river opened back up. Kids started fishing out there again. Life went on. But there for a year or two, we were all convinced he'd come back, slit our throats in our sleep for seeing what he'd done.